Hi there, and welcome to the Study and Learning Centre's workshop for HDR research candidates. This workshop is the first of two on academic style, and we hope it'll help you to develop an authoritative style of writing. I'm Dr. Jen Anderson. Now, it's best to look at this workshop while you're writing your thesis. We're going to look at how to write a clear argument using what higher education scholars Barbara Kamler and Thompson have called a hands-on hip stance, and how to create a cohesive and coherent flow of information by fronting your argument and using clear signposting. The next workshop will attend to style and grammar issues, including nominalization, active language versus passive, referencing techniques, and the art of hedging. As novice researchers, you may forget that when you present your work, you should do it with authority. You may think, other writers say it better than I do, so I'll give them first place in my writing. Or perhaps you feel like a fraud. It wasn't my idea in the first place, so why do I pretend it is in the claims that I make? Or perhaps you're afraid to attract criticism, so you let all the previous researchers take the heat and hide behind their greater reputations. But think again. You need to demonstrate to readers and listeners that your research is significant and original. You need to write in a way that gives the readers confidence in you. It's your research story, after all. First of all, it's good to remember that your thesis, that is your key argument, should be visible in the research aims, that is what you intend to investigate. It should be visible in the objectives, those actions that you'll take to conduct the investigation, and they should be visible in the research questions or problems. Of course, all of these relate very closely to each other, or at least they should, and they underpin your research process and the writing. Your research questions, aims, and objectives direct the claims that you will make regarding your research. So, for example, the answers you get to your research questions or the solutions you find to given problems, well, they are your main claims. Pause the video if you'd like to think about this a bit longer. In terms of the research story, check that each section or chapter of your thesis also relates to your aims and research questions, and in the case of practice-led research, the sections need to relate in some way to your creative project. Next, check that there is a logical progression between the sections and subsections. Can you see a clear story emerging, or is it unstable and non-hierarchical? Does it break with the idea of a story? There are a number of ways in which the story might progress, from general to specific, from more important to less important, or the other way around, according to themes or concepts. This is the most common. A series of comparisons and contrasts, a set of logical arguments leading to a conclusion, or a chronological sequence. Have a look at thesis sections from other theses in the RMIT thesis repository. How do other writers progress their research stories? Maybe that one chapter uses one of these processes and another in another chapter, or one paragraph even. So these are really great organizing principles that we see at the paragraph level, at the chapter level, and at the thesis level. Finally, as you write your paragraphs, ask, why do I have this here? Is it related directly to the writing? Does it belong here or somewhere else? And does the writing, the image, or the graph contribute to my overall argument? Sometimes it's difficult for us to get rid of ideas because they took such a long time to become realised. But like writers of fiction, we have to learn to kill our darlings. Look at this chapter of Michelle Chingy Lin's thesis. You can see how her research story is progressed according to themes. Look how clear her story is. We see key words repeated, such as board and directors. And these words are accompanied by a supplementary idea, such as the size or the leadership or the composition. We can also see that she has structured the themes to move from general or more conceptual, the board, to more specific or concrete, that is, the specific characteristics of the directors themselves. In this activity, place the subheadings you see in the key below in a logical order to create a review of literature. 2 hints. First, read the title or research topic. And second, use the general to specific rule to organise them. Pause the video now while you complete the task. As you perhaps noticed in Activity 1, Song's literature review is organised around themes. She begins by introducing the concept of knowledge and its complexity. She places these ideas in a theoretical framework of the key topic of knowledge management. Then she narrows this field to ICT and then narrows it further to identify issues and concerns. She tops and tails her literature review with an introduction and a conclusion, so it can be read as a discrete document or a story within a story. Would this work for your thesis or dissertation? Did you use the thesis title to help you develop a logical structure? There are 3 key parts to the title. This general topic is knowledge management. The specific area of research is ICT. In a way, that's the scope or the focus. And the original contribution is finding or testing an approach for greater effectiveness. That is, by moving from enabling to facilitating. You can see how everything is interrelated. We like the image of a hands-on hips stance because it reminds us of a person who's taking a strong, authoritative position. She may appear a little aggressive, but we like to think of her as assertive, willing to stand and be counted as a graduate researcher with a mission. Your aim is to demonstrate to the reader that you know exactly where you fit in your research field. Look at your paragraph structures. Whose voice takes primary position in the first sentence? Is it you or someone else? It should be you. It's your work and your writing. Let the other researchers and their work back you up. Are you showing the reader how your story compares and contrasts with those of others in the field? Are you presenting the ideas of others in terms of their research positions or claims? And are you clear about your acceptance or rejection of these claims? Kamler and Thomson suggest that graduate researchers like us need to develop a healthy degree of appreciation and criticality. Well, what's healthy? A balanced position is healthy. We should always appreciate the research of others, whether we agree with it or not, because it offers us a springboard for analysis, critique, and innovation. And we must remember to critique the research, not the researcher. Our scholarly role is to interrogate claims, to put our ideas and the ideas of others under close scrutiny. Can you see evidence of this activity in your writing? Are you justifying your claims, your research method, and your use of one particular theoretical framework over another? That is, do you talk about what you're not doing just as much as you might be talking about what you are? Let's look at this paragraph and identify how the claim is supported by the writer in each sentence. Pause the video now and read each sentence to see how each one makes a comment on the claim. Here's a possible way of understanding the argument. The first sentence holds the claim. It's the topic sentence, and it's in the voice of the author, very authoritative. Sentence 2 makes a subclaim that is quite provocative, and we see this, it can be argued that, tends to be a relatively provocative way of introducing a new idea. The reference is at the end, placing greater value on the information than the author. Sentence 3 offers statistical support for the subclaim in sentence 2. Sentences 4 and 5 give more supporting information about the link between globalized practices and organized crime, which is the topic of the paragraph. And sentence 6 summarizes the ideas in 4 and 5 and makes a claim about mirroring, again using information prominent referencing, that is, the writers are placed at the back of the sentence. The final sentence concludes the argument and adds some detailed information about financial institutions and money laundering, because it is likely that this relationship is going to be explored in more detail in the next paragraph. What do you think about this paragraph? It's quite effective as a piece of analysis, isn't it? Pause the video while you look at its structure. Can you see how the ideas are clearly linked and developed in that previous paragraph? So that's your aim, to stitch your ideas together in a logical pattern. Here's another activity. As with the previous activity, identify the ways in which each sentence supports the main claim in sentence 1. Underline the words that help to link the ideas together. The topic sentence has been identified for you. Each sentence is in a different colour. Pause the video now and analyse the sentence functions. This paragraph is quite complex because it's about testing assumptions. We see in topic sentence 1 that an assumption is established based on facts. In sentence 2, we learn that the assumption has been tested in 2 studies, but the results were not the same. Sentences 3 and 4 introduce study 1, which fails to find universal value in doctorates based on 2 criteria. And sentence 5 introduces study 2 and shows how it explores the issue from a different perspective. Sentence 6 discounts this study. And finally, sentence 7 links back to the topic sentence It summarizes the issue and ponders what might constitute universal value. Pause the video if you'd like to look at this more closely. Did you consider the linking words that create the relationships between the sentences? Sentence 1 starts with, which indicates the writer is setting out a necessary condition for the main clause about the assumption. Sentence 2 starts with however and this assumption, so we know it's going to be contended. Sentence 4 begins with she further argues for, so we understand this is a second claim made by the previous author. For example, in the middle of the sentence offers a clear example for the claim. Sentence 5 begins with from a different perspective, so we know there has been another related but not identical study. We're also alerted by the reporting verb attempted. It's clear that the PhD writer Maxwell is not convinced by this research. Sentence 6 uses however to indicate that Maxwell will argue its credibility, and sentence 7 begins with interestingly, despite these failed attempts. So we can see a final comment from Maxwell to summarise the point she's making in the paragraph. These linking words are comprehension cues that help us to read for the meaning that the writer intends. They're very useful and very essential, don't you think? One of the important things to notice in your writing is, are you putting the most important information up the front or at the end? At the paragraph level, the topic sentence that holds the main claim should be close to the first sentence, and all the following sentences should be related. Go back to the activities in this video to see how the writers have achieved this. And then in our sentences, we need to put the important information first, at the front. If you look at these sentence fragments from a literature review paragraph, you can see something is wrong. A whole lot of studies, without any information, take the front of these sentences, and all the information about the findings in the studies is hidden at the back. We don't know what the claim is because we can't see a topic sentence. It's so difficult for a reader to stay interested when the topic is so hidden. So, make a topic sentence and tell a story. Group studies according to their themes or results or methods. Decide if you want to critique them in terms of validity, reliability, or perspective. What's the story? Systemic linguistic analysis divides the sentence into themes and reams, which is another way of exploring the fronting principle. The theme is the topic of the sentence, and the ream is the complement that supports the theme. In the following two sentences, we see that the theme and ream have been swapped, and this changes the meaning. Which idea should we make prominent, and which idea should be supplementary? Well, it all depends on the topic sentence that you've selected for the paragraph. In this activity, mark the themes and reams and decide, does the paragraph tell a story? In which sentences would you change the theme and ream to ensure one single idea runs through the paragraph? This may take you some time, So pause the video now and think about it quite carefully. Well, in this version, you can see that I've got the themes at the front there on the left and the reams are there on the right. So I've attempted to make a clear story that runs through the paragraph. There's been little research conducted in the area. The writer is identifying a gap in the research, and notice how each sentence theme relates to the claim in the topic sentence. This may be a useful template for writing up the research gap in the literature that your research intends to fill. So rather than X says this and Y says that, we have qualitative research evidence to date, little attention, little evidence, and few studies. So this all guides us towards an opportunity for research. Signposting threads your ideas together. In some complex theses or dissertations, you need to help the reader to orient themselves in the maze of the research. In fact, because all theses and dissertations are complex. 3 examples of signposting include forecasting, recapitulation, and overview. As the word suggests, forecasting is used to alert the reader to what is coming up and when. For example, in this chapter, the results from the qualitative analysis are discussed, or this will be investigated in detail in chapter 4. Recapitulation is the opposite of forecasting. It's a technique used to remind the reader of what has come before. For example, the preceding section outlined the literature relating to the value of the doctoral degree. This section, etc. And finally, the overview helps the reader to contextualize an important point by offering some background information. For example, before presenting an analysis of results using this statistical tool, it's important to explain its relationship to the methodological approach. It's kind of contextualizing activity. We also signpost the different levels of the thesis: the whole thesis, other chapters, the current chapter, other sections, or the current section. This practice of locating ideas indicates to the reader that they're engaging with a thesis that's a unified whole with interconnecting parts. Be careful, however. Too much signposting can offend the reader, who may be clear about where they are in your research story. Your supervisors and critical friends can help you decide if there's too much signposting or not enough. Don't forget to ask them to think about this while they're reading your work. In this activity, read versions 1 and 2 and decide which one gives a clearer picture of the research and why. These 2 versions represent the opening introduction to the literature review chapter on trickling filtration. An examination of these 2 versions makes you wonder if they're referring to the same research. Version 1 repeats the topic without being specific about the content. It focuses on the methodologies that produced findings rather than the content itself. Version 2 gives the reader a step-by-step summary of the chapter contents, and the signposting allows the reader to prepare for the content in each subsection. If we do a theme and ream analysis, we can see that version 2 fronts biological film as the topic of the first section and operating variables in the second section. Let's review some of the key points regarding an authoritative stance. Your research tells a story, and everything in the story relates to your research questions, your aims, objectives, and outcomes. Make claims up front and use the work of others to support them. Be clear, be strong, but not aggressive. Front end your arguments, let them guide the reader, and use signposting to direct the reader between chapters, sections, paragraphs, and sentences. If you'd like to know more about grammar and style, make sure you visit workshop 2. Remember, your research has value. In order to demonstrate its worth, write with authority and guide the reader to deeper understanding. Happy styling. Cheers.